I wanted to move on to our second topic, which is the whole Biden fiasco. And as I'm sure we're all aware, there was a book that came out by, I think, Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson about how there was a huge cover up. People knew what was going on. And now the president, and obviously our thoughts are with him, has been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of prostate cancer. But it begs the question, prostate cancer is a slow developing cancer. This is an aggressive kind, but typically more men die with it than from it. And so my point is that he had to know that he had it because this was years in the making. And then Zeke Emanuel, who's a doctor that I really respect. In fact, he wrote a great book analyzing healthcare systems around the world that I highly recommend everyone to read because it didn't take a side, but it just pointed out strengths and weaknesses of all the healthcare systems. But anyway, he basically said he had to know about it. He could have had this for 5, 8 years. And that begs the question, how big was this cover up? Obviously, there was hubris involved, there was selfishness, but the only defense I can make for Biden is that all his life people were telling him, you can't do this, you can't do that. And somehow he always did it. So he probably figured in his diminished state, well, I can do it again. I'll prove him wrong again. But the bottom line is 70% of the country didn't want him to run. He was losing so badly in the polls. New Mexico and Virginia were in doubt. If he'd run, they probably would have lost another 3 seats in the Senate and probably another 8 to 10 seats in the House. So I guess the question is, where does this leave us? Obviously, it gives them a lot less credibility to attack the mendacity of the Trump administration when you had a huge cover up. But what do you folks think about this and what should the Democrats do? I'll start with you, Ashley.
Well, listen, I the most interesting thing to me was, obviously we can debate the health part of this in regards to when the prostate cancer came, went, whatever. What I think is when President Trump posted this week, or X this week, I don't know the correct way to say the tweeting, this week saying, like, listen, is Joe Biden really the person that we should be blaming here, or is it really the people that covered it up, especially on the mental health side of things? I think otherwise, the story would kind of die. I mean, he's not president anymore. Um, Everyone's kind of tired of talking about the Biden stuff, not just his sickness, but just in regards to like things he's done right and wrong as president. What continues the conversation, which is why Trump did this. I mean, like, let's be honest here. It wasn't that he really probably feels bad for the president, is that he's continuing this conversation of mistrust in the Democrat Party. And so I can't wait to hear what Kurt says, because I think that's where this gets, and especially the infighting. Obviously, there's going to continue to be some fingers pointed, and whether it's at the media that didn't cover it, or whether it's at, advisors to Trump, or to, excuse me, President Biden. But that's the story here more than anything else, I think, or the story that will continue. I mean, listen, we're not talking about the $300 million airplane really anymore. Like, that was so last week. This book may be so last week by next week. But Kurt, what do you think? Because I want to know how you're messaging this.
And
If the
Kirk,
American
before you
people,
answer, no, I was just going to say, before you answer, if I may interject, I think just to build on Ashley's point, one of the things, and we talked about this on the show before a couple of years ago, is that Biden has never had someone like a James Baker or a Karl Rove, who's a really trusted advisor who could tell him what he doesn't want to hear. If you look at the people in his administration, like Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken, they're very competent, but they were subordinates. And and then Jill, I think, is the worst. She was the one that I heard rumors where people would be talking to about not running, and she would cut the conversation off. And she was the great enabler here. But I do agree with you that the people around him deserve more blame. But please go ahead, Kurt.
I was going to say that if the American people use trust as a litmus test for how they vote in election, Donald Trump would never have seen the light of day. This is someone who lies as easily as he breathes. The American people already believe that both parties are corrupt to a certain degree. They already believe that both parties and politicians lie to them all the time. So I'm not sure that there's like a real brand damage, because I think the brand is already so badly damaged anyway that, it's not going to affect how people necessarily vote, especially since Joe Biden will never appear on a ballot ever again. So, I get why Republicans are doing what they're doing, but ultimately it's a distraction. It's not going to change anything electorally, in my opinion. I said this the other day on News Nation. Joe Biden could have decided never to have run for re-election ever, and the Democrats still would have lost this election. People that are using Joe Biden as the scapegoat for why Democrats lost. Do I agree that if he had run, it would have been a bigger loss? Absolutely, it would have been. Period. There's no doubt about that. But do I believe that if this had never happened, Democrats still would have won? No, I don't. Because fundamentally, Democrats have a problem with being completely out of step with a large swath of the electorate. They are losing hemorrhaging voters from all demographics: white people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian Americans, younger voters, the college educated voters. No, not college educated voters. Democrats lost with every single one of those constituencies in the 2024 election. Has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. It has to do with the Democratic Party's overall brand problem that they spend an inordinate amount of time allowing a tremendous amount of oxygen being spent talking about issues that Americans frankly don't want to talk about. They don't give a crap what bathroom you're using. They don't give a crap. They don't want to talk about who's playing in what sport. They don't want to see you die on the hill of LGBTQ. Like the Democrats allow the fringe of their base to hijack a tremendous amount of the conversation, when what they should be talking about is the economy and taxes and jobs and healthcare and the things that affect everyday Americans. Democrats don't do that. And that's why they lose elections. Until they fix that, no matter what name they put forward, no matter who's running on the ballot, until they figure out how to talk to people who go to country music concerts, frankly, they're going to lose.
But one thing, it's so funny.